The worst year for a lot of us for our mental as well as physical health. So joining us this morning is best-selling author, coach Lisa Goldenthal.
Hello and welcome. I'm Lisa G, your host. You're at the top of your game, yet the game is changing faster than ever. Strategies that got you here aren't the ones that'll keep you here. The pressure is relentless, and the fear of obsolescence looms large. That's why I'm here. Welcome to the new podcast series, Disrupted: How to Be Gritty and Unlock Performance. This is your chance where I sit down with today's tops in business, mindset, wellness, and success to help you master disruption.
Thanks for coming, and I'll see you soon.
Welcome back to the WholeCEO podcast, where we feature powerhouse leaders with stories of courage, grit, and legacy. Today's guest is the embodiment of service and leadership. Born and raised in Shoreline, Washington, he is a true American patriot. With over 47 years of combined military and civilian service, he's led from the front as a platoon sergeant, as a chief instructor, as a senior command representative, which is the civilian equivalent of a colonel. He's completed 11 combat zones deployments across Iraq, Bosnia, Kosovo, Kuwait, and Afghanistan. And he's not just a military man. He's a devoted husband, father of 5, grandfather of 4 in a beautifully blended family. He's moved 11 times, mentored countless soldiers, and carried the weight of duty, leadership, and logistics across the globe. This conversation is about sacrifice, resilience, and what it takes to build a life of impact. I am honored to welcome Steve Nelson to the show. Welcome.
Thank you.
I'm so excited that we met and that I got a chance to sit down and talk to you. Fun fact, you're actually my neighbor. And jumping in, you've been deployed 11 times across some of the world's most volatile regions. Can you share one of your best and one of your most difficult deployment experiences and how that shaped your leadership style?
Sure. A lot of them are pretty bad. You get attacked a lot. There's poor living conditions, things like that. But you kind of get used to that after a while. So, one is not much different than the other. You go to Iraq, you go to Afghanistan, whatever, you just kind of get used to that. But one of the worst ones I think I was on was actually going into Albania
Right.
with a unit called Task Force Hawk. The Serbians were in Kosovo, and they were forcibly, trying to take over the country. And our mission was to go in there and basically kick them out of the country. So I was stationed in Germany at the time. I had just got done taking a steak off the grill, and I walked into the house and the phone rings. And on the other end was the commander. And he goes, "Hey, I need you down here tomorrow morning." And down here was near Heidelberg, and I was in Bavaria. So it's about a 3.5 hour drive on the Autobahn. "I need you down here at 0600 in the morning."
Wow.
I'm like, "Okay, yes, sir." And that wasn't real uncommon to get calls like that, but this one was a little, I could tell there was something different. So we got down there and we had a big briefing, and basically was told, "Hey, we're going to stage out of Albania, and we're going to go into Kosovo, and we're going to basically kick the Serbians out of there." So uh, that day, I ended up having to go over to what's called Rhine Ordnance Barracks in Germany, and I drew a big 5-ton truck with a trailer attached to it, which had all our gear already pre-positioned in it. So we had chemical suits, we had water cans, fuel cans, generators, tents, all that sort of stuff already pre-packed in these packages ready to go at a moment's notice. So I drive that over to Ramstein and I stage it at the airfield. And they go, "Okay, we can go home tonight, but be back tomorrow." So I went back home, and turned out there was six of us that went out. The next day, we drove back down to Ramstein, and then we did what soldiers do. We waited and waited
Wow.
some more and waited a little longer. And finally they said, okay, it's your turn. Let's load up your vehicles. So they had, these big C-17 transport jets. We loaded our vehicles on. We had a couple Humvees, and then we had my big truck, which actually had an office on the back of it, a big box with all our office gear in it as well. So I was the last one on the airplane, so I would be the first one off of the airplane. And of course, we back them in. So when the
Right.
airplane lands, you just drive off the ramp. So we land in Albania, in Tirana at the airport, which is a civilian airport. Uh, the civilian side of the airport was full of NGOs, or non-government organizations, that were providing relief to refugees and things like that. So it was pretty nice on that side. That's not where we went. We went to the other side of the airfield,
Gosh.
which had been a sheep pasture just days before. And the night before, it had rained 11 inches. So I drive off the back of the C-17, almost ran over a news cameraman. He was standing at the bottom of the ramp. He got out of the way pretty quickly.
I would too. Yeah, that's scary.
Yeah. So we rallied everything, and we got all our stuff together, met with the commander, and then we went over to the other side of the airfield to find where we were going to live, which was again just a big field. So that field rapidly deteriorated into just a big mud field. I was on the 26th flight into country. Uh, about the only people that was there before me was the 502nd Parachute Infantry Regiment, which was providing security around the base. They had fighting positions dug all around and soldiers in them with machine guns and sighting devices and things like that. So the weather never ever got better there. It just continued to rain. Well, we had brand new, like I said, this vehicle was overpacked with all this equipment. Well, we had brand new tents that the government services agency buys for us, the
Right.
Army tents. We set them up, brand new, and they all leaked because whoever made them didn't put seam sealer on them. So these
Oh,
tents
God.
they're little octagons. You can fit like six people in them. So every day that thing would just leak, leak, leak. So we had, the drinking water we had were 2-liter water bottles. So we ended up clipping those to the ceiling of the tent so we could collect the water as it came in, so it wouldn't get totally drenched in there. But every night you would flip your cot around with your sleeping bag, because either your head's going to be wet or your feet are going to be wet.
Oh my gosh.
So we did that for a number of months. Every night we would launch missions up to the border, uh, ready to move into Kosovo. Uh, and we were literally a trigger fingers pull away from going to war. All the armament systems were on, the master arm switches were on, the targets were identified, and then they'd get called back.
Wow.
So we had basically three Apache regiments. Half of the total fleet would launch one night. The next night, the entire fleet would launch, and we would rotate that. So early on, we crashed one helicopter, mainly because they weren't used to flying with heavy loads of armaments and extra fuel and everything else in the mountains. They came out of Central Europe, so they were used to flying at a lot lower altitudes. And the one aircraft came in and suffered what's called settling with power. So as you come in and you flare out in a helicopter, you pull in collective, which collectively puts pitch into the rotor blades and provides more lift. Well, it's basically stalling a helicopter is what happens. You keep pulling more power in, and it
Yeah.
just keeps falling, and eventually you lose all lift. So that airplane crashed. Luckily, the only injury was the backseat guy, a captain, broke his thumb. Uh,
That's it. That's a miracle.
Apaches are pretty survivable aircraft. However, later on in the mission, uh, a number of weeks later, we crashed another Apache. Unfortunately, this one, when it crashed, uh, burst into flames,
Oh my gosh.
and we lost both the pilot and co-pilot gunner. Uh,
That's so
I
sad.
was on the ground, back listening to the radio calls, and we heard what happened, and we launched a recovery crew. And every time we flew a mission, we had the Air Force came with us, the PJs, they're pararescue jumpers, uh, special ops guys. They take two helicopters behind us, so if we crash or get shot down, they'll come in and rescue them.
Right.
Well, they couldn't get within about 300 to 400 meters of this aircraft because of all the ordnance that was exploding. So that was a very, very bad night.
I can't
Uh,
imagine the couple of months and months of living in a soggy sleeping bag in a leaking tent, like for morale and illness and things like that.
yeah, I mean, it was terrible. And, every day the air commander, the General Cody would come by and see us, uh, ask how we were doing, and because we were there to support him. And he always had, he was always upbeat, but he always had two bodyguards with him. And then one morning he comes by to get coffee and he's by himself.
Right.
And I look at the team after he left and I go, this thing is over with. They go, what do you mean? I go, General Cody doesn't have his bodyguards. We're going home. And it was like a day after that, they told us, okay, you're leaving, mission's over with. Uh, so we never did go into Kosovo. The Serbs did pull back. Uh, I don't know if it's just, the threat that we were there. They knew we were there, whatever, but whatever reason, they left. The other bad part about that deployment was that little airport in Albania became the most what was the word I'm looking for? The busiest airport in the world. Okay,
Oh my
so
God.
about every 30 seconds there was either an aircraft landing or taking off. And these were all very large transport airplanes, American C-17, Russian IL-76s, which are huge transport airplanes. Because we brought in a bunch of tanks, we brought in a bunch of Bradley fighting vehicles, we brought in a bunch of special forces guys. It was a big, big operation. So those things were landing and taking off constantly. So the noise was just
Oh,
unbearable.
I can't
We
imagine
actually
the no-
we actually had a flight surgeon from Ramstein come and visit us and said, "You're all going to go deaf."
oh my
Uh,
God.
and they got us some really good hearing protection. I already had some, and I actually showed it to the doctor. He goes, "Oh, I'm going to go talk to the general about this." So he did, and next thing you know, everybody got the same, $1,000 a pair David Clark noise
Wow.
canceling headphones.
I'm
But
glad you had
that
that,
was a
but
bad.
that's awful. I mean,
It felt like it was such a waste. We were there, we were living, it was miserable. We lost two really good guys, really good pilots. We stood out in formation the day we took their remains and loaded them
oh my gosh.
onto the C-17. And the military has a tradition when you do that. You stand in a big formation, and typically the first sergeant or the command sergeant major, depending on which, how big the division, how big the unit is, goes out and it's called the unit manning roster. It's got everybody's name in the entire unit on it, hundreds of people. And they call out your last name, you come to attention and you reply with your first name, middle initial. Well, obviously, when they get to the deceased, nobody answers. So they do it 3 times in a row. And they did it. It was pouring rain and thunderclaps went off when they called these guys' names. It was
Steve, that is so sad.
Yeah, it was a really bad deployment. I mean, it was one of my shorter deployments, but it was miserable. So that was the worst.
Well, was there a best one then? If
The
that,
best one, now the best one, it was also in the Balkans and it was in Bosnia. it was either my second or third trip to Bosnia. I went in the first time with the first group in December of 95. This was in spring of 97.
Right.
Pope John Paul II was coming. So our unit was tasked with guarding the people, the pilgrims that were coming into Sarajevo. You know, Sarajevo had been under siege up until just 1996. It was under siege for, I think it was 1,425 days. It was it was a year longer than Stalingrad was under siege. It was the longest siege in modern history. And Sarajevo sits in a big mountain valley. You know, that's where they had the Winter Olympics. So Pope's coming. So we were in a different town in Bosnia, but we went into Sarajevo to support him. So I'm again with a 6-man team. We drive in there, and I see a Holiday Inn. So we pull into the parking lot, and I've got what's called an Inmarsat, an International Maritime Radio Satellite System. It's like about the size of a laptop computer, but the lid is an antenna. So you find a satellite, you face it, and then you can call people. So I called 1-800-GO-HOLIDAY. And the representative on the other end answers like, "Well, yeah, I need a room in your Sarajevo uh, hotel." They go, "Sarajevo, where is that?" I go, "Bosnia Herzegovina." They go, "We're sorry, sir, we don't have a Holiday Inn location there." I go, "Well, I'm in the parking lot and I'm looking at the sign
Oh
and it
my
says
God.
Holiday Inn." She goes, "Well, we did before the war, but it's no longer a Holiday Inn." I go, "Okay." So I'm like, can't do that. So I go into the place and they wanted a whole lot of money, which I didn't have.
Right.
Yeah, it was mainly, you know, news people and stuff that were staying there. So we got back in our van and we drove down to the NATO compound, which was actually part of the Olympic Village, the Zetra Ice Stadium. And on the Zetra Ice Stadium floor, on the ice rink itself, they had containerized housing units. So basically shipping containers that they turn into little apartment rooms for you. So I got one of those for $2.50 a night, which I could afford.
Yeah.
And I stayed there. Well, the Pope was due to come in. So we had to go over to the airport. Well, the entire city was closed down uh, for security reasons because the Pope was coming in. And he was gonna go down what was called Sniper Alley in his Pope mobile. So prior to him arriving, they'd gone through and welded all the manhole covers shut. They had special forces, counter sniper units on rooftops. Uh, and then the French special forces unit went out and searched the road he was going to take from the airport to this monastery he was going to stay at. Well, as you leave the airport, you have to cross a little bridge over a culvert adjacent to the Olympic Village. And the French special forces found about 80 kilos of high explosives under this bridge.
Oh my
So they
God.
removed it. Uh, so the Pope would have a safe journey. We also had two special operations Black Hawk helicopters sitting in the hangar that we could fly him on. So we didn't know what he was going to do. He hadn't gotten there yet. It was a really dreary day. It was overcast, really socked in. So his airplane finally comes in. We're all standing there. There's only forgot to mention to get around town, you had to have a red pass. They only had 50 of them that they gave out. So it was just mainly the unit that was supporting it and then some TV personalities that were there. So his airplane comes in, it lands, rolls down to the end of the active runway where a Russian IL-76 transport plane was sitting there with a nose gear that had been blown out because it hit a landmines. So they could never clear it off of the runway because the entire airport off of the runway and off of the tarmac was completely mined. So you didn't dare go off there or you get blown up. So the Pope's airplane goes down. It does about a 3-point turn down at the end of the active runway and turns around. And the top hatch, I believe it was a DC-8 he was in. It had a top hatch right in the cockpit. They pop that up, and then his flag goes on top.
The Pope flag.
His flag, the Pope's flag. And like I said, it was completely socked in. They put that flag out, and that aircraft starts rolling down the active runway.
Oh my gosh.
Sky opened up. A sunbeam came down and hit the airplane. I mean, I tell this story, I get goosebumps every time I tell it. The sunbeam basically followed him down the runway.
Wow.
And he gets down to where the reviewing stand is, the red carpet, everything. He comes out, he's got his Swiss guards, all that, and he goes up to the reviewing stand, he makes some comments. Then our crew goes up and, hey, we can take you in the Black Hawks. You don't have to go here. It's dangerous. He goes, no, I'm here to see the people. I'm here under a mission of peace,
Yeah.
and I'm protected. He goes, I'm taking my vehicle. So he got in his Pope mobile uh, the next day, and he went over there or actually that same day, he went into to where the monastery was that he was going to stay. Well, fast forward to the next day, I'm at Zetra Ice Stadium. I get up in the morning, I go out to what passes for a latrine, and I come out, and lo and behold, what's coming down the pathway between the ice stadium and the fence is the Pope mobile. Two
Oh
guys
my
in front, a driver and a guard, both in suits. The Pope in the back. He looks at me, he blesses me as he drives by, and he
gosh.
goes to the adjacent to the ice stadium was a soccer stadium, Olympic soccer stadium, and that's where he celebrated Mass. So that was
Wow.
a pretty cool deployment. After that, the next week we went down to Mostar. The Secretary of Defense was coming, and we had the same mission for him. So we went down to Mostar and did some stuff down there, and that was pretty cool too. I met the curator of this museum down there, showed us where to eat lunch. That mission felt just the opposite of the one in Albania. The Albanian one felt like it was a waste. This one felt like we were really
Oh.
accomplishing something
And
that,
you met the Pope.
peace was finally coming to Bosnia. You know,
Wow.
people could start to live a somewhat normal life again. So that was very rewarding. When you deploy, you're there for a short time typically, and you don't really see the results. I mean, you see instant results, but you don't see the overall results.
Yeah.
But in Bosnia, you could see that, and it felt good. It felt good that we were in there and we were helping, and we brought peace.
Oh, what a wonderful circuit moment. I mean, full circle moment. I mean, serving the military is one thing. Do you want to jump into what it's like being part of a military family and moving 11 times? And
Yeah.
what are some of the biggest challenges you have come up with in that kind of stuff?
Everybody looks at, the person that gets on the airplane and flies to wherever and does their thing and then comes back home. But there's always somebody, or typically somebody at home, uh, taking care of all that other stuff. There's a
Right.
spouse there somewhere normally. There's a lot of single soldiers, and that's not the case. Maybe their parents or whatever. But for the married guys and gals, there's
Yeah.
either a husband or a wife or somebody at home that's keeping the home fires burning. In my case, it was my wife. I can remember a deployment to Afghanistan. On one trip, our dog got very sick, uh, ended up dying.
Oh gosh.
The restaurant that my wife ran down in Nashville uh, caught fire in the middle of the night. I knew about it before she did. I read it on the internet when I talked to her that morning, and then my
Oh,
mother died.
oh,
So all those things happened, in one short little 6 month period. Uh, and that's not to mention, the things in the house that go bad, that you've got an electrical problem or a plumbing problem, or you've got a child like we did. I mean, our daughter, when we were transferred from Fort Hood, Texas to Fort Campbell, Kentucky.
Right.
And I was told when I went for the position in Fort Campbell that, hey, when you get there, you're going to get a 6 month deferment from any kind of deployments.
Right. How long
Well, I
does
was
that
there for a
last?
month. So I
A
got a
month?
call. It said,
Oh
come to
God.
Fort Bragg. I went to Fort Bragg. The boss says, sorry, but you're going to Afghanistan in a month because we need you there as the senior command rep. So the senior command representative is actually the commanding general's representative in country. So I had to go represent our commanding general in Afghanistan. So I really didn't have much of a choice. So I get back home, tell my wife, tell Cynthia, look, I know they said 6 months, but I'm leaving next month. We've got, again, a grade school age daughter. If it wasn't for a lady in the neighborhood that befriended us and had a daughter the exact same age, because my wife was working down in Nashville, which was about 45, 50 miles away,
Oh my gosh.
and she had to leave early in the morning. If it wasn't for this other woman stepping up, we don't know what we would have done. The military has what they call family readiness groups. Every unit has one. Some are really good, some are not as good. It's like any other organization. It's whoever's leading it.
Yeah.
It kind of takes on the same characteristics as a leader. So, they do try to help. They try to keep people informed. A lot of times they do turn into rumor mills and things like that, which is just the opposite of what they want them to be. They want to stomp out rumors.
Yeah.
That other person has to take care of the house, has to take care of the kid, has to do everything that two people have been doing.
Yep.
And now, boom. And it could be, you could get a call in the middle of the night and the next day you're gone. So there isn't any time to prepare a lot of times that, hey, I'm going to have to take this whole role over. You have to be ready all the time. You have to be just as ready as the person that gets on the airplane is. Sometimes more so, I think. Uh, because you're dealing with that person that's gone. You're dealing with everything they're dealing with, plus you're dealing with everything at home.
Oh
Where
my God.
typically
And
the
you're
person
working
deployed is
and you
more
have a
focused.
baby. I mean, that's
Yeah,
crazy.
I mean it's tough. It's really, really tough on the spouses. We call them, in the military, everybody's got a radio call sign. Commanders are typically, such and such six. Like if they're a Delta company, a D company commander, they'd be Delta six.
Right.
Well, whoever stays at home is kitchen six or household six.
I love
Uh,
it.
as far as we're concerned, they're the commander at home. So,
Absolutely. They should be. Well,
uh,
final question. A lot of young people today are unsure about serving the military. Is there any things that we don't know or things that are good and bad and opportunities and benefits that the military can still offer future generations?
yeah, I mean, I could look at myself as an example. Okay, I was what I call a JD, kind of a juvenile delinquent in school. I wasn't
Oh
really,
my God, I would have never guessed that, Steve.
but I would rather go to the donut shop and hang out and with my buddies than go to physics class.
Right.
That's just the way it was, or
Yeah.
do hot rodding or sports or whatever. So I didn't do great in school. I did okay. I graduated from high school,
Right.
and yeah, thanks to my dad, he kind of gave me a 30-day ultimatum and said, "Look, you can stay here, go to school, pay me room and board, and I'll help with school, or you can stay here, go to school. Uh, I'll let you live free, but you pay for all your school, or you
Right.
can get a job." Well,
Yeah.
I was kind of rebellious, and the Army recruiter had been calling my friend and I for weeks. So I said, well, let me go talk to this guy. So I call him up. He's a He's a guy from Georgia, had a really thick Southern accent. He goes, we'll pick you right up. I go, all right. So I went down, I took the battery of tests. He calls myself and my buddy, I don't know, a week later and says, hey, the results are in, come down to the office. So we go down to the office and he reaches behind him and he pulls this big 3-ring binder off of the shelf and he hands it to me. He goes, these are all the Army jobs. You can do any of them in here. Pick which one you want. And then I
Wow.
looked at my buddy and he said, you could be a cook or a truck driver. I'll be a truck driver. So I decided that I wanted to get into aviation. So I was a what was called an aircraft armament and fire control specialist. So we took care of all the armament, visionics, radars, all that sort of thing on the aircraft. So, you know, it's pretty technical, and I did really well in it. You know, and they sent me to special schools. I did special, laser testing and stuff way back early in the 70s. I selected for that, a lot of different things. So anyway, throughout my career in the Army, it was kind of just the opposite of what happened in high school. Every class I went to, I graduated first in my class. I did really well. And I kind of figured it out. I had direction. I had somebody telling me, this is what you're going to do.
Yep.
And I
So you
And then when I
functioned
when I
better that
got
way.
out and I got my civilian job, the same kind of thing. Of course, throughout the time, you can go to college, you can do all this. So,
Yeah.
you can take advantage of that. So there's a lot of kids out there, I'm sure, that were like me at 18, 17. You really don't know what you want to do the rest of your life.
Yep.
Some people think they do, but then they get to school and they go 4 years and they get out and they can't find a job and they're like, is this really what my life's going to be like forever? So, I mean, there's an alternative. Yeah, you could join the military. They will pay for your college while you're in the military. When you get out of the military, they will give you a GI Bill, which pays for even more college. Plus, they'll give you housing allowance. They'll pay for your books. They'll do all that stuff. And if you go in and you have student loans and you score high enough on the Armed Forces entry tests
Yeah.
and you agree to sign up for a certain number of years, typically 4 to 6 years, they'll pay off your student loans for you. And there's a multitude of things you can do in the military. Anything you can think of that you can do in the outside civilian world, you can do in the military. You can be a doctor. You can be a pilot. You can be a construction worker. You can be a office worker. You can do just about anything in the military that you could do in civilian life. The one thing that the military does is it gives you some discipline. It teaches you leadership.
Yes.
Some of the leadership courses in the military are some of the best in the world,
Wow.
bar none. They teach you how to, because the U.S. military is kind of unique in that, you go into battle, you might have, a corporal that ends up being in charge. Other people get injured or whatever. And our military is unique in that we will let somebody like that take charge.
Yeah.
Are they going to remain in charge forever? No, probably not. But I mean, there's cases in history where, you know, people get battlefield commissions. They may have been a sergeant and they end
Yeah.
up retiring as a colonel or a general because they were commissioned on a battlefield somewhere and they really got their leadership skills together. So lots of opportunity that housing, medical, uh, the pay is okay. It's not the greatest if you were to extrapolate it out and say, okay, well, I'm on duty 24/7, then the hourly wage gets pretty low. But,
Yeah.
realistically, you're not working 24/7. You get 30 days paid vacation every year from day one.
Right.
Uh, and then they take care of you when you get out. You there are transitional phases that they'll put you through. Uh, they'll help you find employment. And when you go to an employer and you say, look, I led a platoon of, 35 people in combat, and this is what we did, that tells somebody right there that you've got, duty on our country to start with, but you can operate under pressure. You can make quick decisions. You can make life or death decisions on the fly. Uh, and then you learn from them. Everything we do, there's after action reports, there's all that sort of thing that we go back and we look at things. This is what we did well. This is where we need to improve. This is whatever. So there's a lot of, I think there's a lot of opportunity. The military obviously isn't for everybody, uh, because you do have to be able to take direction.
Yeah.
You have to, like my wife said, I could have never been in the military. She's kind of in the military, but she goes, I could never be in it because, just the regimen, the dress right dress, that this is the way you're going to do it. Now,
Yeah.
if you
Well,
find a better way, you can tell them there's a better way, and a
yeah.
good leader is going to listen to you. I learn stuff from privates all the time, but you have to listen to them.
Well, you're open to that. I mean, thank you so much for your unshakable leadership and for pulling back the curtain on what the life of a military hero is really like. And
I wouldn't say hero. I would just say military guy.
I know you don't want me to call you colonel or anything like that because you were the civilian equivalent of it. But to me, when I met you just a short while ago, I was like, how do you survive 11 deployments? And I'm just want to tell you that I honor you and thank you for your service.
Well, it's my honor to serve. It really is. I mean, there's a sense of pride when you put the uniform on, you have that flag on, and you go in and you're representing our country and our people.
Right.
So you try to be the best representation of that you can.
Well, you were a great mentor too, and went out of your way to make sure your soldiers were well cared for. So thank you for the person that you are too.
Thank you.
Bye.